Welcome into Can We Just Talk, the podcast where it doesn't matter if you live under a rock. That's all right if you do, because we'll fill you in on what you missed from this past week's biggest events, stories, and developments in a nice casual conversation. This is your host, Troy DiSavino, joined alongside by Austin DiSavino, Nick Brzezina, Richie Welbrock, and again, special guest coming in through Zoom. We got Chris Sakonis back on the next episode for this week. We have got quite the episode to get to today. On the docket, we've got a story about a green puppy, toilet paper stamps, a really fast car. There's no more spooky parties being condoned by Airbnb this year. Disney ending and, putting a warning on their possibly racist movies from the past. A murder nest found in the United States. And there's a USC football wide receiver suspended and under a federal investigation. So we got a lot to get to. Let's get going. First up on today's episode, we've got a really unique story. A green puppy born with a litter of white siblings in Italy. This one coming from CNN. As a sheep farmer, Christian Malossi might be accustomed to the occasional black sheep amongst his flock. That's coming from the article. But something that could have never prepared him for a green dog. Earlier this month, Maloschi's dog, Spalaccia, gave birth to a litter of 5 pups, 4 of whom were white, like their mixed breed mother. The last, a male, was covered in green fur. Caught everyone a little off guard. I've never heard of a green puppy. Again, born on October 9th on the Italian island of Sardinia. And he's up for adoption. His name is Pistachio, fittingly. And he's going to be staying with Malossi and his family until he's adopted. So I think the green tint will go away. I think it's just out of the litter, came out a little green. And there's a picture. It's like neon green. It's not like a little.
It's very green. It's like a lime, like a neon lime green. This is Austin DiSavino, by the way. Thank you again for having me back, Troy. But that dad dog looked at his wife and was like, "Yo, honey, were you stepping out on me?"
Did you go with a lizard?
Whoa.
I do have a question. This is Richard Welbrock, aka DJ Baked Potatoes. Some of you might know me as. Would you eat it?
What? No, it's a dog.
Greens. They're good for your heart. The more you eat, the more you fart.
Isn't that beans?
That's beans. It's not
beans.
It's not green.
It doesn't apply to dogs.
And it doesn't apply to dogs.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a bean, not a dog.
It is most definitely not dogs. It's beans.
So Troy, where does the green? Did they find out where the green came from? Was he just eating like green Skittles or Mike and Ike's? Did like the mom Lassie actually step out with the gecko from the Geico commercials? Like,
so it's apparently a rare phenomenon, which is thought to happen when light-colored puppies come in contact with valverdin, a green pigment found in bile. Ooh. It's the same pigment that makes bruises turn green. It essentially dyes their fur in the womb, and the color fades over time. So he will not be green forever. But the farmer actually said, this is interesting because the litter was up for adoption. The farmer told CNN actually in a later report, "We are keeping him. He arrives in a dark time, but he will bring luck."
Oh, that's
similar
nice.
to the green color.
So what you're saying, it's the same thing that causes bruises to turn green. So the other puppies just beat the shit out of that other dog while it was in the womb. Is that what you're saying? What happened?
Yep, and we're all acting like it's a cute thing. This poor dog was bullied in the womb, but it's alive and well. And
uterus bullying, not cyberbullying.
And Pistachio is a sign of luck for this Italian family. So a nice way to kick it off on a lighthearted story. Chris, I mean, let me hear your take on this. I know you're a big Italian dog fan.
Are you a dog guy or a cat guy, Chris?
He's an Italian dog.
I'm a dog guy. I'm not a cat guy.
Okay, good.
What's your favorite breed?
What's your favorite breed?
Favorite breed? I wouldn't say I have a favorite breed. I have one dog. He's a Chihuahua. That's not a favorite breed. That's just what I have.
I respect it.
Is it green?
Stinky.
It's not green. I can confirm. I didn't know that it was possible for dogs to be green. I thought that the scientific explanation behind it was kind of interesting. I am disappointed to hear that it will fade over time. I thought it'd be kind of cute if the dog just stayed green.
Well, if it keeps getting the shit beat out of him,
if the other dogs keep
it's going to be green.
As someone who was beaten up extensively as a child, no, I'm kidding.
What was the 40s like?
It's a rough time on the streets.
Shut up, Austin.
We love you, Chris.
I could add to this dog breed conversation. This is Nick Brazina talking, by the way. By far the most handsome dog breed out there, and my favorite is the Norwegian Elk Hound.
Do they come in green?
What?
No.
So it's not the most awesome. Norwegian Elk Hound.
Next one up on the docket for today. This one kind of seems almost like a cruel joke. Only months ago was there a huge toilet paper shortage. Now in Austria, the Postal Service is printing special COVID-19 stamps on toilet paper. This one coming from CNN. The report says if 2020 could have taken the form of an object, it would surely be toilet paper. What better represents 2020 than toilet paper? Like we said, in the United States, that was one of the biggest shortages for some reason when COVID first hit. You could not get to the store. You could not buy toilet paper. Now it seems to be Lysol wipes. But this is not only has this year been crappy, again, this report coming from CNN, but reports of people hoarding toilet paper in large quantities during the coronavirus pandemic will live in the memories of many. For that reason, Austria seems to think that they should make a stamp for it to commemorate the idea. So the stamp is made of 3-ply toilet paper, and it features a baby elephant who's 1 meter in length, has been used in Austria as a reminder of the recommended social distance. Customers can even use the stamps to enforce social distancing. 10 stamps lined up next to each other measures 1 meter, the recommended social distance in some countries. It's a very strange thing. Each stamp measures just under 4 inches in length. That's a big stamp. Stamps must look very different in Austria than they do in the United States.
I think it's like a tongue-in-cheek type of promotion, right? It's like a commemorative thing. I think it's definitely tongue-in-cheek that they're making light of a global pandemic that has claimed a lot of lives. But on the other end, it is a little funny that they're poking fun at, because that really was crazy. Like, you could not go to the store and get toilet paper. Like, you really could not. It was like people were afraid that COVID was just going to make them poop forever.
I'm just having a hard time. Why is Austria's stamp so different than the ones in the United States? Like, this is a 4-inch stamp. That's huge.
Troy, when was the last time you had stamps actually like on you? Like, you just had some stamps on you?
You think 4 inches is huge?
That's a big stamp. That's a big stamp.
So is it only on one piece of the toilet paper?
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's for use. I think it's a commemorative thing.
Yeah,
like,
still.
I was gonna say.
Then why are they making a stamp? Just make like a poster.
Because they're the Postal Service. What else are they going to make? China?
I would not wipe my butt with that, but
Well, it's 3-ply.
it says you could tear it off, so I was like, all right, that's fine. I mean,
it's a fun thing.
I think it's
the
only.
Postal Service.
It seems like it's targeted towards children, though. I don't think like
what,
adults.
the baby elephant?
Yeah.
Well, it says in the article that that's how the Austrian government was telling people to stay a baby elephant distance apart. I can think of a lot of other things to use as like a measuring stick than a baby elephant, because how many people have the inherent knowledge of how big a baby elephant is?
Yeah, what if someone thinks it's like the size of like a small dog and they're just like breathing down everybody's neck and they're like, it's a baby elephant.
They were using that as a measurement, but like, people are gonna start associating it with the actual length of an elephant and not realize what to do.
Yeah, they're gonna see a real elephant and be
Chris,
like, what the fuck is that?
Your expert opinion on the matter?
I don't think it was meant exclusively as a joke. I think what happened is like the amount of toilet paper that one could produce in a set period of time is like fixed. Like, they couldn't ramp up production when everyone decided to buy 6 months worth of toilet paper. And now that everyone has toilet paper through to December, they're not buying it. So they're like, oh my God, what do we do with all this toilet paper? So naturally they said, all right, let's make stamps with it, as we would all think to do in such a situation. So that's probably
3-ply.
Like, that's not even like cheap toilet paper. That's probably better toilet paper than a lot of people use.
Listen, Troy, if you're going to make stamps out of toilet paper, you have to go all in.
It's $3.25 a stamp. That's crazy.
Do you buy stamps often though? Like,
no, but a stamp is like 10 cents.
Yeah, but it's a commemorative thing. Like,
I guess
Especially
like stamp collectors.
I think the most interesting thing from this article was that they said if 2020 could take the form of any object, it would surely be toilet paper. I'm going to go all in that if 2020 was an object, it would be an umbrella that's been blown inside out that's laying in the middle of the street during a rainstorm, because it starts out with like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm an umbrella. I'm going to protect you. And then as soon as you go outside and like one gust of wind hits you, your day is ruined. That is what I think 2020 would be as an object.
2020 is pretty shitty. So like I feel like the idea of toilet paper covered in shit is a good idea.
Okay.
Either that or masks.
I was trying to.
Or masks.
I mean, we did get the Joji album this year.
In other news, this one also coming from CNN, this is a exciting one. A car just smashed through the speed records at 316 miles per hour. This is coming from a little-known American automaker, and they just claimed the title of the world's fastest production car. The vehicle, which was tested on a 7-mile stretch of the Nevada highway on Saturday, also reached the highest speed ever achieved on a public road of 331.15 miles per hour.
God.
The top speed is 316 miles per hour. It's the result of 2 runs in opposite directions to account for wind and road variations. This car is made, again, it's a small company called Tuatara Hypercar. And like I said, average speed of 316 miles per hour. The Tuatara, which has butterfly doors and produces 1,750 horsepower from a turbocharged V8 engine, is the second vehicle built by SSC to earn the title of world's fastest production car, according to the company. It says the model's aerodynamic design was inspired by fighter jets, taking more than a decade of research and development. I mean, it's pretty fast.
I just want to say some corrections. So the name of the company is SSC, and the official top speed is 316 mile per hour, not the average speed.
Yeah, so
that's crazy.
Just to put that in perspective.
Wait, no, I said the Tuatara Hypercar reached an average speed of 316 miles per hour.
It's not an average speed of 316.
It says
it is, because when they do those, they go one way, and then they go the other way.
Look.
Anyway, semantics, it's really
No, it's not semantics. It says
the official
Tuatara Hypercar reached an average speed of 316 miles per hour.
It is.
But it also says the official top speed is
331 miles per hour.
No, look, official top speed is 316 miles per hour. We're both right.
All right, well, listen.
You're wrong.
To put that in perspective, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is what, 5 hours away from here by car?
Yeah.
It is almost 300 miles away. If you drove that car at top speed, you would be there in an hour.
And for reference, we are in northwest New Jersey.
You would be there in an hour. Pittsburgh, which is about, 5 hours away from here.
Who wants to be in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, exactly. And then you would have to be in Pittsburgh. So then that would
Pittsburgh is a beautiful city. Go Steelers.
Chris, I know your car. I've been in it. It's a very speedy car. It's known as one of the road's more daring cars on the road.
The Toyota Corolla.
You're used to driving that speed deal. I mean, you think you could handle something like this?
What is your car?
Yeah, what is a car?
What is your car?
Well, I wouldn't describe the Toyota Prius as a speed demon, but
I knew it. You are economical though. You're saving the environment.
I'm saving the environment, and I'm saving a ton of money. So like, I really don't care if people think my car is cool.
I drive a Honda Civic. It's not like
if anyone's saving the trees, it's me.
Your car is very nice.
Mileage on this Tuatara.
We both drive economy cars that are not speed demon cars. I mean, one person here who does drive a speed demon, 2001 Nissan Altima. 2000 Nissan Altima.
GLE.
0 to 60 in 17.8 seconds. But yeah, Chris, back to that question. I mean, you think you can handle that type of speed?
I could handle any kind of speed, Troy. Don't worry about me. I will say this. While we're talking about Pittsburgh, Troy and I were fortunate enough to go to Pittsburgh last December, back when we were allowed to travel places.
Sorry.
I could have used a 316-mile-an-hour car, because we would have gotten to Pittsburgh with that car in less time than it took us to drive to Newark Airport to get on the plane to go to Pittsburgh. And I think, we'll have definitely woken Troy up because he slept through the whole trip. So that would have been nice to have.
So,
Uh-oh.
speaking of fast cars, I don't know. Yeah, Austin, you have some experience driving
So
supercars.
I have experience turning
being
down.
a passenger.
Yeah. So I was fresh out of college. So to answer your question, I would die if I had to drive that car. Like I have confidence in my ability.
You'd be like at 120 and be like, this is too fast.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
you still have
Like,
3 times the amount of speed to get.
I'm
Like
like
330 is crazy.
like that's incomprehensible. Like I'm doing 85 in the left lane on 78, calling into WRSU, and I'm nervous. But like, so I was fresh out of college. I was in California, and somehow I was able to go join this road rally as a passenger. And there was like Porsches, there were Spyders, there was Lamborghinis, there was Ferraris, and I got to ride in the Ferrari. I forget the type of Ferrari, but like the engine was in the back
458
seat.
Italian.
Yeah, it was really nice.
458.
We're driving down Highway 1 along the coast. The guy who invented Slingbox TV, I know I'm dropping names here, but God rest his soul, really, really nice man. But we stop, and he's like, hey, do you want to drive this?
No way.
And we're driving south on Highway 1, which means the ocean is on your right. So there's no
That's a beautiful highway.
margin. It's just cliff on the right side, and on the left is oncoming traffic. And as the 21-year-old that I was, I said, no, thank you. I enjoy being a passenger. But those speeds that he was going, you were pinned to your seat. I can't imagine what over 300 miles.
I mean,
that's like an airplane.
I wouldn't have the confidence in myself to be
No.
able to control a car like that.
But like
yeah, that's what I was
inch-
thinking. Like, if he even flinches and moves the wheel, he should just go. I mean, I know when I'm
Even
going
at
fast
100
in my
miles an hour,
car.
that's gonna happen.
It's interesting
Yeah,
though because
exactly.
it's not the engine doesn't sound like it should be able to go 317 miles per hour. It's a V8. Like it's
a
only
V8?
8-cylinder.
Yeah, but what's the weight? The car probably weighs about 40
Well,
pounds.
I think the reason it's so special is because of the design, the aerodynamics of it. Because for some perspective, you can buy a Mustang off the lot that has 8 cylinders. It has, they're
but
getting
that's also still gonna
every
get up
single.
to 250
Yeah, it's
easily.
1,700 horsepower. That's where it comes in. And if you have a light car, it's gonna fly. But just for perspective, it's not like they dropped like a 12-cylinder into this thing. It's very impressive how fast they're able to get it to go with sheer design.
How I want to know is how does a company come out of nowhere and unveil this car that's gonna go 300 miles an hour, and like where are they getting the funding for this?
It's gonna be like a boutique line, so they'll probably release. I think the rule is for it to be production, it has to release.
What is it, Richie?
Something like 50 cars.
What is
To
it?
be a production,
No, I want to say it's at
like
least
25 or 500.
No, I want to say it's at least a couple hundred.
Yeah.
Because, I mean,
So what is that? You're saying like those?
So they're not trying to make. You're not going to make a lot of profit on this. They dump.
You're
money
saying
into
so.
this.
You're saying like that Lamborghini like Batman car that they only made like 4 of. That's not technically.
not a
it's not a
production
production
car.
car.
Yeah.
No.
Like the Lamborghini, the Aventador, like that's
Yeah,
production.
that's
Yeah,
production
yeah.
car.
I'm
easily.
talking like
That's why the
Porno?
Bugatti Veyron is because that's a production car. So like there is a lot of really, really fast cars, but there might only be 1 or 2 or 3 in existence because they're not made for production. They're made sheerly for making a really fast
I would
car.
say like mainly I would say the 2 main like production fast cars would be a Bugatti and a Koenigsegg probably.
Or a Zentorno.
yeah.
So, Chris, the big question here is, what would you rather have? Would you rather have this car? What's the name of this car?
No idea.
The
Tuatara.
Tuatara. He's also the quarterback for the Dolphins. So would you rather have this car, or would you rather have your tree-hugging, dog-petting, vegan-loving Toyota Prius?
I mean, if I were allowed to drive at 316 miles an hour in the real world, I'd probably go with that car, but I'm going to stick with the Prius.
It's a good answer. I don't think you could afford the service. I don't think any of us could afford the service.
The girls are major.
I'm guessing it's like a $60,000 oil change if it even takes oil. So
Oh, easy.
next up, we've got a very timely piece. This one coming out during the Halloween season, spooky season. Airbnb, they are canceling one-night Halloween bookings to prevent house parties. This is one of those holidays that Airbnb has in the past made a decent amount of money because it is a spike holiday where people, want to rent a house that they can have a party at and not be their own. So it's usually a destination holiday. This year, though, because of COVID-19, Airbnb took a stance against large gatherings this summer by banning parties in its rental properties globally, and they're going to be continuing to carry that over for Halloween. Now the company is taking the move one step further in North America, like I said, to implementing that one-night ban bookings on Halloween. So you can still book with Airbnb on Halloween, but it can't be a one-night thing. So that's how they're preventing for the Halloween parties. So the vacation rentals platform announced a couple weeks ago, this is coming from October 5th, it's heating up a little bit more because people are starting to realize that they can't do that. So their plans are getting a little busted, but entire home listings differ from private room and shared room Airbnb listings, which only offer a portion of the house or building. So it's not clear cut exactly which ones you can't get, but a lot of listings are coming off and the availability is down. So it's interesting. There's going to be some backlash on both sides. There's some house owners that, make some nice cash for a one night because they can kind of boost prices up a little bit. It's a high in demand night, but they've decided to go against that this year. And it's probably for the best.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Airbnb is not saying you can't book this as one night. They're just saying you can't do it through our site. So those people that are getting angry, find a different site to put it on. Like Airbnb is making a decision in the interest of safety and health. And like, I can understand people being upset, but I think those people that are getting upset should probably take a moment and examine, hey, is this really something that I should be doing, is hosting a big Halloween party?
I just think it's like another repercussion stemming from people not abiding by the rules of, hanging out with only people in your circle and stuff. Because what happens to those people who want to just have like a family party on a Halloween and maybe, get that Blockbuster Airbnb, the last Blockbuster left on Halloween, watch movies in the last Blockbuster on the planet.
That's cool.
With their family, but now they can't do that because of everything going on. So I just think it's another repercussion, and it might not go away for a while.
So do you have a message for those people that aren't listening to guidelines?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's ridiculous at this point. Like, people are complaining about like why they're not being able to see their friends and stuff when they're going out every weekend, mainly at colleges and partying with people they don't even know, and then they end up getting the virus and they're like, how did this happen? So you just got to be smarter about it.
I think it's really kind of, to build off of that point, I really think it's kind of just sad that people couldn't have been smarter about this in the spring and summer. If people kind of avoided, doing stupid things like this earlier in the year, maybe we would have been in a position where we wouldn't have to worry about stopping people from having Halloween parties. But because the virus is still so out of control, like, we're still forced to police people's behavior. And it's kind of sad and dumb that people aren't smarter about this. Like, it's a pandemic. Like, you're not going to out party a pandemic. So just, I don't know. I just think it's sad that we have to even have this conversation.
Unless you're built different. If you're built different, you can...
I am not built different.
So this one coming from the Washington Post, the announcement of that policy change stated that 73% of all Airbnb listings already did not allow parties as part of their house rules associated with the booking. The vast majority of our guests behave in manners that show respect for house rules and neighbors, that company said. So I know those are already kind of in the rules, but I mean, it's Airbnb. They can't really know exactly what's going on. So to solve that issue, they've just decided to say, we're not going to allow one-night bookings.
Every Airbnb I've ever stayed in and had a party at has said no parties. So Airbnb, if you're listening, that absolutely didn't happen. And you can kind of tune out now. And now that Airbnb is tuned out, but every Airbnb that I've had a party at had that listing that said no parties.
Rule breakers.
Sorry, Mom.
Rule breakers.
What was that like, being at a party?
It was great.
I've never been to any.
There was just, we all sat around and said our favorite thing about each other, and we just had a great time. We all were in bed by 9:30. Woke up bright and early, went for a brisk walk in the morning, and it was just, it was great. It was a wild time. We had like cheese that came out of the can. It was wild.
Austin threw up in a Dunkin' Donuts the next morning.
Speaking of,
I did it in the Dunkin' Donuts.
We all
had to.
We all remember too well. We were gonna call it quits, but we had an 8 a.m. We had an 8 a.m. booking for paintball.
Someone booked 8 a.m. paintball on my bachelor
It's
party.
unfortunate that we can't do that on a one-night stand for Halloween, but so be it. Thanks. I understand where you're coming from, Airbnb. And
Thanks, COVID.
It's probably the right move. From NPR, Disney warns viewers of racism in some classic movies with strengthened label. This article coming out this past week from October 16th. Again, coming from NPR, the report says, many people have long said certain Disney classics like Peter Pan, Dumbo, and The Aristocrats contain racist stereotypes and overtones. Well, Disney agrees apparently. Viewers will now encounter a warning on Disney Plus when streaming those and other titles containing racist material. Quote from Disney said, we can't change the past, but we can acknowledge it, learn from it, and move forward together. Again, Disney said on its website, dealing with a new advisory to create a tomorrow that today can only dream of. Disney began labeling titles with a disclaimer in November of 2019, but recently strengthened the message explicitly containing some depictions racist, in quotes, on its website. The new message appears before the title plays for several seconds and in the program's description. So, a big step being brought forward. I know a few months ago, I guess, what's the famous ride in Disney World? The log
Space
flume?
Mountain.
No, the log flume.
Churros.
No, it's it's based off
Thunder
that
Mountain?
Monorail Rabbit.
Yeti.
It's,
Escape from Yeti.
Splash Mountain.
Splash Mountain.
Splash
Splash Mountain was being rebranded because what movie? I forget which movie it referred to.
I think it's Brer Rabbit, right? It's something about the.
It was a very racist,
Yeah.
had a lot of racial undertones.
I don't think about that ride when I think of that place though.
Well,
What,
Chris
Disney?
I
probably
think about
does.
Space Mountain.
Oh no! Well, this is like one of I think this is one of their oldest and classics.
Yeah, it's
I guess.
noticeable.
It's
And-
old.
And a lot of people, I mean, that ride never saw the movie, but there was a strong affiliation with it. So now it's being changed. I know some things have been thrown around. Princess and the Frog going to replace it, but this is just another step Disney is taking to try to correct the past. They even acknowledge that we can't, change what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
It's new leadership coming in saying, we're going to acknowledge it. We're not going to pretend like it didn't happen. And for that reason, we're going to put these warnings at the front end of all the movies. So I think it's a great step.
That's
taking.
smart. That's
It
a
is.
responsible
They're
move.
I agree. Like when I first got Disney Plus last year, I was like, "What's the oldest thing I can watch?" And Steamboat Willie's on there. And before it plays, and also like at the bottom, it's like, just know that when this was created, we do not currently reflect the views and how this was presented. And it's for all those people that got upset about people taking down statues, that it's going to erase history. By the way, that's not going to erase history if you take down statues of Confederate people. Like, miss me with that argument. But even if you are one of those people, you can't be upset by this because they're not changing history. They're just saying, hey, this is what it is. We don't think this is acceptable now, but we're just going to show it how it was created. And if you don't like it, just know we still don't think this way, but this is what that piece of art was.
No, yeah, I think it's huge by them that they put this out on those movies like this. And like, going off your history point, I actually took a class last year, freshman year, called Race and Ethnicity in American Cinema. And half of those movies we watched and discussed were Disney movies. But like their post says, like, this shouldn't be seen as like an awful thing that happens in these movies. It's a look back into the past, and it's an important thing to talk about. Like, we watched Pocahontas was the main movie we focused on, where like lots of times the natives are referred to as like savages and stuff like that, and that's it. But I don't know, I just think it's important to, like they said, see where we've come from and see how much like things have changed, and also how much things need to continue to change.
They're owning what is wrong.
Yeah,
they're owning
up
saying,
to it.
we don't think this anymore. And as long as the new stuff that they put out doesn't reflect that, which it hasn't, and they work towards inclusion and diversity and like showing all the different stories that are out there that can be magical in the Disney world. That's what should be focused on, and it's good that they're owning up to their racist past.
Yeah, I think you guys really summed it up. I think they're sort of striking a balance between, they still have all of these old racist cartoons as Disney cartoons, like they can't erase that, but they're taking a big step forward here by acknowledging that and saying, hey, this is a reflection of the past. This isn't who we are anymore, and they do that when they have the cartoon. I think that's pretty smart by them.
I'll propose this question. What do you think the better move would be? This approach, or possibly acknowledging what they did and then removing the movies and the cartoons completely? Because that's what we've seen a lot of other brands do. We've seen that with the Aunt Jemima products. We've seen that with the Washington football team now. We've seen that with Land O'Lakes, butter. They've kind of removed the complete other approach, and they've just kind of said, yeah, that was wrong, we're done with that. Do you think, I kind of like what Disney's doing. They're not trying to pretend like they didn't do it. They understand that it's still there, and by them leaving it up on Disney Plus is almost like, look at the mistakes we made. Yeah. We're not like trying to hide from it.
I think, if I could jump in, I think two things on that. One, I think there's a big difference with Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben and things like that, because those were current promotions, right? Those were current commercial promotions, current products. Like, this is a long time ago. Like, Chris probably remembers seeing this in the theaters when he was a kid, but like, it's a really long time ago. And
Didn't you say 5 minutes ago?
I know. I said I was going to be nicer, but it was just too easy. Chris, we love you. But like, so it's not current, right? So I agree with you in a sense, Troy, that they're still putting it out there, but they're not like actively putting advertising dollars behind these specific projects. But I also think the more important point here is that we are 5 white dudes sitting around a microphone talking about this. We are not necessarily the people or the race or the culture in these old films that were being stereotyped and having the racism against. So I personally, for me, it's not my place to say what Disney should or shouldn't do with it. I think I can weigh in on what I think about what they are doing about it, but I don't think, to answer your question, it's really my place as a white male to tell them what they should or shouldn't do, because I'm not the race or the culture that was being directly offended by this.
I want to agree with what Troy and Austin said, and also I'm just going to be that guy and, say the cliche. I just think, history is doomed to repeat itself. So if they take this stuff down, I feel like, it could pop back up in the future. If, because this is just, now that they put out this message, it's easier for people to go back to these videos and see like, wow, this really was messed up, and take that into consideration instead of just deleting it forever and not seeing examples of it in pop culture.
Also, I feel like it brings a lot more attention to it. Like, I'm interested now in going to watch one of these films to see that warning at the front end of it. Yeah. Instead of just removing it completely, then it just kind of gets forgotten. Important question. Richie, your favorite Disney movie? I mean, what do you think it is? Do you have one?
Favorite Disney movie?
I don't know. I mean, especially because don't they own...
No, I'm talking
like the Spider-Man count.
How about like the OG films?
Like animated.
Yeah.
Does it have to be animated?
Honestly,
or can it be Disney Channel original?
I'm trying to think, because I did like some newer ones, surprisingly.
Is Monsters Inc. Disney?
No,
that's Pixar. That's
Pixar.
different.
Yeah.
Is that Toy Story?
Is that Pixar
Disney?
or DreamWorks?
No,
I don't even know.
DreamWorks.
It's
DreamWorks.
DreamWorks,
Because
right?
Shrek actually isn't Disney.
Is Toy Story?
You know what? Better yet, let's go through what do we know as Disney? What do we know as Disney?
I have no idea.
Lion King,
I know Cars
Pocahontas.
is Disney.
WALL-E.
Snow White.
What?
WALL-E?
Well, WALL-E's really good.
WALL-E's Pixar.
Well, WALL-E's good.
Well, wait,
Pixar
maybe
did
Pixar's better than Disney.
Wait, what were you saying, Chris? I can't hear you.
But Disney and Pixar collaborated on most of the movies. Like, most of the Pixar movies were also considered Disney movies.
Yeah.
Well, now Pixar is owned by Disney.
We're mixing up Pixar and
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
DreamWorks.
Yeah.
You're right,
DreamWorks is a
Nicky.
different thing.
DreamWorks is different.
DreamWorks is Shrek. That is complete. That is not Disney.
As a kid, I was a big Pocahontas fan, and I haven't watched it since I was a little kid. So I'm interested.
It's a lot. It's a different experience because I just watched it last year, and it's a lot. Let me tell you, like watching movies from an analytical point, rather than just watching movies, is a completely different experience.
So when you watched Hereditary and decided you needed to pray afterwards, was that analytical or not?
That was simply based off of
fear.
Yes, and the ending scene in that movie will curse you for life. I'm just saying, the ending scene in that movie was one of the
We're in like the
probably
treehouse or something.
90% of the reason why I felt like I needed to be cleansed after that. Yes,
I'll give my pick for the best Disney movie, and it's a very timely one, and this is the official one. If you don't agree, then get over it. It's Remember the Titans, and there's no discussion. There's no argument.
That's not a classic.
It's a Disney.
It's
a Disney.
Yeah, you literally said it yourself. Classic.
animated.
That is
yeah,
classic.
Like animated.
It's like no, I didn't say I said classic.
The best Disney movie.
Classic Disney.
The best Disney movie is the one where they kill Thanos.
That's not classic. That's not
That's
classic.
classic.
No, it's not.
I mean, that is a really good movie. What's the best Marvel movie?
Avengers,
What's the best
Endgame.
Marvel
All
movie?
right, that's it. I don't want to. This is crazy now. All right. Next up, we've got some disturbing news. If you remember from back in, I want to say May.
Season 1 of COVID.
Yeah, season 1 of 2020. Murder hornets came to American soil, United States soil. Well, they are here to stay. They are making a long impact now on the country. So if this one coming from CNN, quote saying, "If you thought giant murder hornets had disappeared because they dropped from the headlines, you are mistaken. There are reports now that the first murder hornet nest was found in Washington and is believed to be the first in the United States." This one coming on October 23rd. Entomologists from Washington State Department of Agriculture on Thursday located the first ever Asian giant hornet nest in the United States on a property in the town of Blaine. Using a new type of trap, WSDA researchers tagged several captured hornets with radio trackers, which they used to lead them to the nest. The cavity of a tree found on a private property was housing the nest, and WSDA members saw dozens of hornets entering and leaving the tree. Could you imagine seeing dozens of these things? These are like small birds.
Are they? How big actually
huge,
are they?
the size
Because
of
I've
your
seen
palm.
pictures.
Yes, they are like the size of your palm.
Giant.
Really? So I've seen pictures of them, and I'm just like, oh well, why is this? Why is this a
And,
problem?
like,
They're
the
like
venom,
big.
I think,
They're deadly.
like
They're deadly.
like paralyzes the part of your body.
if
with
like
things.
if 2 or 3 of them get you, you're probably dead.
I think one can kill you.
What?
I think that's why they're called the murder hornets. Like
No, I
one
think they're
is-
They wouldn't call them murder hornets if they just gave you a small rash.
no,
Like,
these things can kill. I'm pretty sure the venom.
That's crazy. I don't think I've seen any pictures of them being compared to like a pencil or
It's
like
not like
something.
it's not like the murder hornet is called like the paralyzing.
Yeah, but it's not called the
an
big
ash.
hornet. You
It's
know,
it's the murder
So,
hornet.
I think we're overreacting. The hornet has a body length of almost 2 inches.
I mean, that's like the size of your palm.
oh, I know how big that is.
2 inches long.
It's like it's like
You're very well versed in
It's
what
like
2 inches
it's like
are.
your
Oh yes,
palm.
I am.
They are deadly. Obviously, it comes with the name. I don't know the farthest they've made it across the country. Washington, I believe, was the first place they were found. Now they are popping up as possible nests. They like to burrow in the ground and inside of dead
And
trees.
it's in Blaine, Washington.
Yes, that sounds familiar. It sounds
So,
like
as Stephen King once famously said, Blaine is a pain, and that's the truth.
last story to get to today. This one about a little football, a little bit of a federal investigation, a little COVID. It's got kind of everything that's in the headlines nowadays in the United States. So a report coming from ESPN, Trojans wide receiver from University of Southern California, Munir McClain, suspended amid possible fraud probe. So the USC sophomore wide receiver Munir McClain has been suspended since mid-September. His mother told Los Angeles Times in a connection to a possible federal investigation into fraud related to the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. A USC Trojans football player was suspended last month by the school in connection to a possible federal investigation into the fraud, again, related to the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. That one coming from the Los Angeles Times. The sophomore receiver has been suspended since mid-September. His mother, Shannon McLean, told the Times, but she said the school has not given her or her son a clear reason for the suspension. So it's kind of up in the air right now of what is happening. Michael Blanton, USC's vice president of ethics and professionalism, told Shan that Munir's name surfaced in relation to a complaint that had been filed involving USC students and a plan to apply for Employment Development Department benefits, the Times reported. Munir acknowledged he applied for financial relief from the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, but was under the impression he qualified because his source of income, reselling high-end shoes, had dried up during the pandemic, the Times reported. A lawyer representing the McLean family told the Times they plan to challenge the suspension. This is kind of gray area. I mean, there's a few things here. When this first popped up, I, for some reason, thought this was going to have something to do with the NCAA not being okay with applying for aid. This one is bigger than that. Apparently, it's just a federal thing. This is just, fraud of applying for aid where it's not allowed. This was a huge...
Is it because he's a student he can't apply for that? Or a student athlete, I should say.
No, I don't think so. I just think he wasn't a qualified person. It also turned out that he was a student athlete playing football at University of Southern California.
So could this all have been avoided if the human beings most responsible for the largest amount of revenue most of the universities see got compensation for what they do?
This has nothing to do with this has nothing.
But if he was getting paid,
but it's an interesting point, because if they were able to get some of the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars that college football teams bring in, maybe they'd be less motivated to
commit fraud.
Keep in mind what school he's playing for, because USC was kind of one of the first schools now that is getting rights to players' names. So now these players have a chance, especially USC and California, they have the chance to make money off of their likeliness and their name. Well, sure, but this is it's not like he's this is the state where that is now being allowed.
Yeah.
This is aside from the NCAA. This is aside from his pay. This is just, I think, kind of a interesting situation that a lot of people are going to find themselves in hot water with soon, because of the fraud that was surrounding with collecting unemployment.
I found a job.
Don't you don't want to, it's a lot of people were doing that. We won't say any names of people who are doing this.
Luckily, I've had my job the whole time through the pandemic.
I think this is just a situation where someone who is playing football for a big school, whose name is in the media if you follow University of Southern California's football team, and now he is amid a federal probe. So it's an interesting point you're making. I mean, should he be making money? Yes. He's not. That's changing soon. He's not going to be making direct payment from the NCAA, but he's going to have the opportunity.
He can use his likeness like any other human being in this country.
Well, not necessarily. There's people, when you sign contracts to work certain places, you sign away your likeliness. You can't use. It's like a company policy for a lot of places.
Yeah, but he can't go like...
He could play for the CFL or... I'm not... trust me. He should be allowed to. That's not what I'm saying, but it's a current situation that he wasn't allowed to.
It's just, like you're saying, it's interesting. And speaking of college football, am I allowed to say, have you guys seen what's happening with LSU and the hot water that they're in? Speaking of
with Odell,
I think that's the dumbest scandal ever.
Worse than Odell, Chris, have you seen this? Is that one of the boosters, who's the CEO of a hospital, was embezzling like $180,000 a year from the hospital to pay one of the linemen's father for a job that he didn't have to show up for. He was just getting that money. Like, if they're doing that for a lineman, what do you think how much money Joe Burrow's family was taking in?
Forget, but not even just LSU. Like, Zion's mom bought like a $800,000 house in North Carolina after her son committed to Duke. Like, this kind of stuff is rampant in college athletics. And, it kind of, when I think about it, I kind of think back to, learning in history class about back during Prohibition, when, bars and drinking was illegal. It fueled the mob in major cities like New York and Chicago. And a lot of shady stuff stemmed beyond that went far beyond just, people wanting to go get a drink. Same thing's happening in college sports. There is a ton of money for these schools. And there's a huge profit incentive involved with getting these top athletes to come and incentivizing them to stay. And what happens then is you get a bunch of boosters and really corrupt figures. There are a dozen people who are either in prison or awaiting trial for embezzlement and other kinds of fraud in college basketball. Like, I don't think it's a stretch to say that college basketball is one of the more corrupt industries just in America in general, because there's this almost a black market around getting these recruits to come and stay and sign endorsement deals.
It was like through the shoe companies, right? It was like through Adidas and Louisville and stuff.
Yeah, I think it was Nike, actually.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, Chris, you make a really interesting comparison, though. I mean, you're talking. I haven't heard that. The prohibition. It's a great comparison when you make these rules. Crime or breaking of the rules is obviously going to pop up. I mean, this has got to be a nervous time for you to live through this. You've been through this before. What is it like seeing the second prohibition pop up in your lifetime? Not only have you lived through the Spanish swine flu or the Spanish flu, you've got COVID, and now you've got a second prohibition.
The Spanish flu. I was a roaring 20s baby. Get it straight, Troy.
Oh, a few years before your time.
Yeah, just missed the cutoff.
You were born from that boom, the original boom.
Yeah. Not being able to go to a bar in the 20s was very stressful on me. It's when I started losing hair.
So you had a lot of that bathtub gin, make you go blind.
Yeah.
Chris and Al Capone were
but seriously, there's one other point I want to make about this is the whole way that this system makes average like fans and people in the media think about college athletics is so weird. Like, think about this. Whenever you hear a story about a player getting offered money to go to a school, everyone thinks about, why is this school offering the player money? But people don't really take a step back to say, why isn't there a system in place where they can make money legally for what they are providing to these schools, which in the case of these top universities is, millions and millions of dollars. Like, Duke isn't Duke unless they can get guys like Zion Williamson. And until they get fairly paid, I think we have to ask ourselves, who should we really be demonizing? The players for taking the money, or the schools for keeping the money out of their hands?
And those the same people that are getting that, like, to be the devil's advocate, they're like, well, they get paid with free education. I would say to that, try paying Urban Meyer or Dabo Sweeney in classes and see how long those top coaches stick around. Like, you can't pay rent with classes, you can't buy food with classes like these athletes are. And I know this wasn't the topic, I apologize, Troy, that Chris and I are kind of taking this off, but I feel like, Chris, we agree on this. Like, these players are sacrificing their body and their health, and they're playing this game. Yes, they signed up for it voluntarily, but like, still, they're not getting any type of financial compensation for this.
Yeah, and we just sort of demonize the players or the school or like the individual coaches or whatever. And I'm not saying that they all have like the purest motives, but we have to ask ourselves, the system is, in my view, largely creating this incentive to go underground and do all these, shady deals, when if the system were just set up in a way where they could be treated like employees, maybe we wouldn't have to worry about all these investigations and stuff. And maybe they could just make money. They can play college basketball or college football. And, it's no different for us fans, and the players get to profit off their likeness.
It's going to change soon. I mean, the first steps that's happening is already taking place, and we're seeing it before our own eyes. I mean, I'd say within the next decade, we're going to be seeing college athletes being paid in some salary type form, in some share of the profit form. I think it's inevitable. There's definitely player unrest. I think to break that, if you ever see, the top high school prospect coming out for basketball, if he ever decides to say, hey, I'm going to sit out a year and wait to go to the NBA, like, I think that would break the system. If a guy like Zion coming out of high school did that,
doing,
right? Already. There were several 5-star recruits who said, I'm going to go play in Australia or in Europe for a year.
We'll see how
Ben Simmons didn't. Oh, no, he went to LSU. But what's the youngest
LaMelo Ball?
LaMelo Ball.
I mean, we'll see how that pans out, because, I mean, I don't think it helps LaMelo for the fact that his father was there with that, because it kind of just seems like he was a head case, and that's why they did it. If you have a straight shooting athlete, if Zion did that, I think it would have been a lot bigger. I mean, he was. That's all ESPN talked about for a year and a half until he was drafted in the NBA. So I think that's one way that could shatter it and really accelerate this process. But I think it's going to happen in the next decade, regardless. Again, getting back to the original point, this is an interesting case to see. Again, this one coming from Munir McClain for USC. He's a wide receiver. He's under a federal fraud probe. this is much more than just him being an athlete. This is an ongoing issue in the United States. There was a lot of, fraud when it came to unemployment collection. So it's interesting to see this kind of hit close to home for a college athlete. You know, something we watch every Saturday, football, and now this is one of their wide receivers under an investigation. So, and apparently it's not just him. There's other USC football players who have also recently received similar visits from the federal agents inquiring about Munir McClain. I don't think that he's going to be the only one involved with this, because I think it just was a normal thing that was taking place throughout this past pandemic. There was federal policies put in place that made it possible to, collect. And he had a job and he wasn't making money anymore. So I don't think there was intent for him to commit fraud. So it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, and to also see how the NCAA steps into this, to see how they protect their players. So it's going to be really something to watch, and I have to believe it's going to have some impact on the way NCAA athletes are treated. For one, for their pay, and for two, for their protection from the NCAA almost as a union. So something to watch. Again, this was Can We Just Talk? Troy DiSavino, Chris Sakonis, Austin DiSavino, Nick Brzezina, Richie Welbrock. We had a lot to get to today on a giant spectrum, but we are thankful for you listening. Again, make sure to stay tuned. We've got another new episode coming next Saturday. Again, this was Can We Just Talk?
Oh, thank you.